Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. Today I want to talk about helping your adult child grow up. All of us, at least sometimes, wish we didn't have to be an adult. It's fun to be childlike, if not downright childish. But alas, unless we're willing to live in the most basic of ways, like off the grid uh, or live with our parents, we recognize we have to be a grown-up, and so does our adult child. I want to talk with you about helping that, as I said, your adult child, as they say, fail to launch, who's been failing to launch. Typically, they're either graduated from college and or dropped out of college, or just went to high school and then took time to explore, to find themselves. They may have literally traveled or just hung out locally. But bottom line is they're back on your sofa or your bed. And unfortunately, now, according to the Pew Trust recent survey, more than half of people 18 through 29 live with their parents. That's the highest since the Great Depression. I put myself in the shoes of such a parent, and I can imagine the frustration. You know, you've put in all your years and spent all that money on college, and there is your kid, you know, literally or figuratively being a barista and back at home, and there is no privacy for you or your partner or the freedom to live your own life, because you're a loving parent and you feel this responsibility even though the kid is now 20 or 21 or 25 or 30. You're understandably frustrated and maybe even feeling guilty that maybe you somehow feel it was your fault. We tend to forget that much of who we are is genetic, and peers have a very powerful influence. According to Judith Rich Harris, peers have a bigger influence than parents. The education or lack thereof, college can often destroy somebody's self-esteem because there's all this hard academic stuff that doesn't really necessarily predict performance in the real world, but it can make your kid feel unefficacious. Quite a reward for all that cost and time and student debt that perhaps you are as responsible for as your child. In any case, it's frustrating to the kid very often and to you, because there's very few kids who just really want to sit on their butt. They feel like they would love to have a career, a great relationship, all the rest of it, but they're confused. They may not have a direction at all. They may have a direction and been unable to find something in this tough job market. It always seems as a tough job market, unless you're a superstar. Even before COVID, even not in the Great Recession of 2008 and 9, you know, unless you're a star, it's hard to get a good job. It's easy to get not easy. It was easier to get some part-time temp contract job, but then you're looking for a new job every few months. But getting a decent job ain't easy. I remember on my radio show, it was on KLW, an NPR station in San Francisco, an expert on federal employment had said that federal jobs normally will get hundreds of applicants for each one job. That's bizarre. Hundreds. And one gets it. What about all the rest of those people? Most of them are quite competent. Anyway, so what is a parent to do? Of course, it's going to vary with the kid. Some kids just need emotional support and praise and a sounding board. Other kids need much more guidance. They need to be, you to hold their hand as they explore what the hell career to pursue. Searching on the internet, doing informational interviews, journaling, whatever. There's all kinds of websites that profile careers. The government has a very famous one called the Occupational Outlook Handbook that has in-depth profiles of over 300 careers. My book, Careers for Dummies, has more informal, kind of fun to read, but also hopefully authoritative profiles of 345 careers, plus a link to more information. Many kids who are not super self-starters, disproportionately the kids who are back at home with their parents, are not the biggest self-starters. They need a holding hand. Just because they're 20 or 25 doesn't mean they're a mature grown-up who are going to be go-getters. Not everybody is. So that kid of yours may need that holding hand. That doesn't mean you're denying them efficacy or that they eventually might not be more autonomous. But if they're back on your sofa, they probably need something from you, whether it be emotional support, help with the career thing. Don't write their resumes or their cover letters or whatever, but certainly you can review them and ask good questions. Do you think this is really making the impression you want? Does this convey who you really are? What experiences have you had in work and in school that might be more impressive? It's great for parents to do that. There's nothing unethical about that at all. What else? And this is, some kids just need a lot of structure. They may need a parent to say, your ass is going to be in that chair at 9 a.m. I know you don't like it. I know you're a grown-up already. But we all need structure. Most of us are not self-employed. Most of us work for an organization because we need the structure of being told your ass is going to be in that chair at 9 a.m. But more important than that, maybe even, and it's a very fine line. There are 3 words that are definitely not popular these days, but nonetheless are crucial to launching a life. And that is duty, responsibility, and discipline. These are all interrelated words. Unless we really want to be a slug and don't mind being dependent on our parents or the taxpayer or whatever, we have a duty to our family, to society, to ourselves, to be productive. And that can be broadly defined. It can be nonprofit, for-profit, techie, non-techie, but we have that duty. I guess responsibility is the same kind of concept, and then the discipline to consistently pull it off. It's not so easy to consistently pull that off. But once it becomes foundational, if a discussion, not a lecture with your kid, but a discussion with those issues about one's duty, one's responsibility, one's discipline, once that becomes part of the kid's fabric with occasional reminders without being school-marmy and lecturing, that can be foundational to your kid being motivated day in and day out to do the work of being a grown-up, what they call adulting these days. How much, you have to ask yourself also, we talked about briefly, but I want to expand on it. What is your child really missing? Is it emotional support, love, hugs, affirmations? Is it tough love? The get your ass in the chair thing and, you screwed up. Is it your connections? There's nothing wrong with helping to launch your child's career or their romantic relationships or friends by introducing them to a potential employer who's one of your friends or relatives. Do they need a structuring for their job search? Okay, today you've got to make a list of your 15 people who are most likely to refer you to somebody who could hire you. Did you do it? Let's check in every day. As I said, do they need introductions from you for potential, not even just hirers, employers, but maybe better friends. Maybe their friends are holding them down, romantic partners holding them. Maybe the lack of romantic partners making them depressed. For time immemorial, parents have introduced their kids to romantic partners, business connections, work connections, and even platonic friends. Then, of course, there's the issue of substance abuse. Now with marijuana legal, these ever stronger strains of pot are widely available, and it's very tempting for somebody who is not launching and is bored or depressed and figure, what the hell, it doesn't matter, so I'm just going to get loaded. What do they need? Do they need your words of support? Do they need your tough love, including daily drug tests? And that you would tighten the restrictions on them when they fail the drug test and loosen them when they're good. Or even more esoterically, does your child need, and we all perhaps deserve, an honest conversation about the existential question about how to live the life well led? Is it hedonistically? Is it mainly contribution? Is it a balance? Or even the toughest question of how meaningful is life any way you live it? Not easy. Not easy. Those are kind of the macro issues. Now, more tactically, does your child need help setting those realistic goals and specific objectives, daily objectives? You might encourage your child to put them in writing on their, so it's on their desk on a little memo thing or whatever, and keep revising it each day, reviewing it each day. Maybe saying aloud what their goals and objectives are to really make these things top of mind. Let's see. I have a wild, it's a very radical idea, but and it won't work if you're in destitute poverty yourself. But if I had a kid who failed to launch, I don't want to be the nag. In the same way as, even a lawyer they say a lawyer has a fool who defends himself has a fool for a client. You don't want to be a nag. That's only going to perhaps distance you. So if your gut tells you that it's going to cause, or it has caused, more problems than it's solved, you're being so involved. Is it crazy for me to suggest that you hire a professional nag? That is somebody who, it's a minimum wage kind of job, but maybe a college student or to spend a few hours each, maybe a fellow college graduate who's struggling themselves, to be with your kid 8 hours a day at $15 an hour. It's $120 a day for a week or two, to get them get them rolling in the habit of being responsible. And it may help both people. It may not even require pay. It may even be a friend that they agree they're going to jointly sit and be productive through the day. And of course, unless the two of them together is going to make them fool around more. And of course, again, one size does not fit all. It's very individualized. So just a weird idea, and because, so that you're not watching all over, you might even ask your professional nag to issue a report every day. Maybe that's best if it's not your kid's friend, because that'd be just too great a temptation for lying. Maybe it's one of your friends' kids or one of your friends. Okay, what else? All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some even tougher things, which is, what if you're not a great role model? And what I call the nuclear option. So anyway, because this YouTube is the audio basis for a podcast, I'm going to take a 15-second break now. I hope you'll stay with me. Okay, thank you for staying with me. As promised, we're talking about how to help your child who has failed to launch, what the current term is adulting, failing at adulting at this point. They could be 20, 25, 30. They could be high school dropouts, high school graduates, college dropouts, college graduates, even graduate school graduates. Thorny question, what if you're not a great role model yourself? What if you have a substance abuse problem, or you're not the hardest worker? What do you say? What do you do? Talk is cheap. What would I do? I would talk with my kid and say, I wish I could be the perfect role model for you, but I can't. I'm human, I have my failings, and so do you, like everybody else. So I hope you're not going to think just because your dad has a substance abuse problem or is not exactly the hardest worker, has been let go a number of times. Yes, it means I can understand you, but I'm hoping that you're not going to use that as an excuse to justify your own inaction. What do you think? Those words, what do you think, may be the four most important words in the English language. At least J.W. Marriott, the head of the Marriott chain, former head of the Marriott chain, said those were the four most important words. What do you think? Okay. I also promised before the break that we would talk about the nuclear option. What I mean by that is this. What if, despite your best efforts, your kid has only made lackluster efforts to land a job, or is continuing to use drugs, or is involved with the wrong people, as they say, bad influences, and you've tried, you're now in your 40s, your 50s, and you're saying to yourself, damn it, I'm entitled to a life too. I'm not getting any younger. I do think there is an appropriate point, and it's cosmic justice, that a parent say, okay, you're getting one last chance, and then you've got to stick with it. And you need to explain that you've made your best efforts, your kid's now 25 or whatever, and they're still at home, and your life has been greatly put on hold, or your own autonomy and your freedom has been denied. You don't, just because you are a parent doesn't create a lifetime obligation for total devotion. So if my kid continued to screw up despite my reasonable efforts, I'm not even saying best efforts, but my reasonable efforts to be a decent parent, both before college and after, and the kid's still there on your sofa, I would say something like this. Johnny, I'm getting tired. I've tried reasonably to be a good parent, supportive where I can, tough where I must. It's not seeming to work. And so it is fairest to me, and maybe to you, if I don't, quote, enable you anymore. So, as the landlord might say, you have 30 days notice. Unless there is real improvement, and I'd be concrete, unless you really are getting you've had second and third interviews, if not gotten the job, unless you've been cleaning your drug test for 30 days in a row now, unless you give up that really evil girlfriend and perhaps replace it with somebody, I'm going to kick you out, even if you have to be homeless. That's going to be really hard for me. It's going to be hard for you. But sometimes it's only that nuclear option that works. I didn't want to do that until it was my last resort. And then I would end with that same, what do you think idea, and see what the kid thinks. Anyway, I think I want to just move into summary mode. So, as usual, the main point is that one size does not fit all. Some kids need a lot, adult kids, I'm calling them kids. Some adults who are failing to launch need mainly emotional support. Some need more structure. Some need really quite a bit of tough love, whether it be, standing over the kid, daily drug tests, hiring that professional nag, and trying to keep open lines of communication. And it's really easy for me to talk about this in the calm of just sitting here in this nice room with in front of the webcam. Much more difficult day in and day out as you're getting older and the kid is in his 20s and you're not seeing a lot of progress. I do feel for parents and think that they feel, many of them have been good parents, and yet the parents who have been better parents are more likely to feel guilty that they haven't done enough. You really can do only so much because, as I said, we are all a product of our genes, and much more by our peers than we might like to think. We as parents like to think that we are the major influence. We are, certainly sit alongside peers as an important influence on our kids. So I guess my final word is forgive yourself. Do a reasonable job. Not even just the best you can, because that's pretty tough, because you're entitled to your life too, professionally and personally. Do a reasonable job, and then forgive yourself. I hope some of these ideas have been helpful. If you are listening to this if you're watching this on YouTube rather than listening to this as the podcast on How to Do Life, which, by the way, you can just go to Google How to Do Life Marty Nemko podcast and you'll get there. That way you can listen to it on your phone. But if you are watching this on YouTube, I, of course, welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. And in any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.